All right, hit the yes button. All right, welcome to Y.E.S Syndicate tonight. Good to see everybody. If you're listening to this later on, I hope you are. Be ready, buckle up. I've got a few things to say. The topic tonight is job applications and interview skills. Really, it's about interview skills. And if you're an entrepreneur, you might be thinking, what does that have to do with me? But what it does have to do with you is the skills that you might learn, not only if you're going to interview, but if you're interviewing people. So that's the segue. I want to talk a little bit about, before we get going, is just being an entrepreneur or being a member of this group or other groups like this. Let me let a couple of our other members in here real quick. There we go. All right, looks like we got a couple people joining right now. I was trying to delay for y'all, but tonight's topic is job applications, interviewing skills, and what goes with that. So we'll dig into that in a minute. But my preamble to tonight's discussion is, we're entrepreneurs and we're in this group for a reason, right? And I believe that we all know what needs to be done to achieve our goals, whether that's becoming an entrepreneur, moving up in the company, whatever it is, whatever your purpose is for being here. I think we all know what needs to be done. I know what needs to be done in my world to continue to exceed. So first of all, are you willing to act on that? Okay. And as we said on these calls in the past, is we want participants. We don't want members. It's great to have members, but we want participants, people that are willing to act on what those goals are and what needs to be done. What is it that you want in life? I have a feeling that you know exactly where you want to be, from your health, your finances, your relationship, where you live. And I have a feeling that you know how to make it happen, right? We all have these dreams of what we want to do and how we want to do them. And I'm sure we formulated those ideas, but this is what it comes down to, is you sticking with your plan, activating your plan, creating some action around that plan, and not just participating in a phone call and then going back to your regular life. Okay. And by the way, it's not activating that plan for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, like being in this group for a few months or whatever that might be. We're talking about years. How many years are you willing to activate that plan that you have in your mind right now to make your goals happen, right? Because again, I believe that we can all do it. What you have to do is decide for yourself, is it time to activate now and start working on it? Stop being a member and start being a participant in your own goals and desires and things that you want to do. I've got a list of things on my desk that I know I need to do. And the more time I put towards them, the closer I'm going to get to achieving each and every one of those goals. And I've seen in the last 5 years what the results of that can be. And I use that 5-year window because that's really the window that I went out on my own without investment dollars, without a foundational corporation, even though I created my tequila company. I'm talking about really hanging out there on a limb to create my consulting business and everything that I've been doing. And I've seen the results of going after it. I've had some really successful years, both, and I don't want to talk just about financially. I'm talking about, successful in terms of achieving the exact goals I set out to achieve. And I want that for this group. So I have a feeling you know what you want, you know how to get there, but are you willing to apply yourself right now, take an inventory of your life every day, decide for yourself that that's what you're going to do and go after it. Otherwise, you could just be full of shit, right? And we don't want that either. So let's go after those things, get to work. We're here for you. We want to be a resource for you. And like I said, I know you know what needs to be done. Use this as a catalyst to do it. Okay, so let's jump into tonight's topic, which again is interview skills. Okay, I see Bruce just signed in. This might be something that'd be good for him because he's potentially interviewing people down the road on his podcast. I don't know, but interview skills are important because whether you have your own company or you work for somebody else, you might be in a position where you need to interview people or you're interviewing for a job, right? So actually, I've got a quote behind this. There it is. Opportunities don't happen. You create them. Same thing goes in an interview. Opportunities just don't happen. You create them, especially in that interview process, right? So here's some bullet points on interviewing. First of all, win the decision. Win the decision. When you're in the interview process, you want to win that decision. Where does that start from? Well, first of all, I hate having to say this, but I know I do. Dress the part. Better to dress up than dress down. Always. Okay. By the way, I'm not going to keep saying this, but if you're the interviewer and you've got people coming in, just flip the scenario. Okay. If somebody doesn't come in dressed for the part, they're probably not a good fit. By the way, I've interviewed somebody that showed up in their pajamas. Okay. That's no shit either. Showed up in their pajamas, literally for a job. All right. Yeah, they got the courtesy 3 minutes and out the door, but dress the part. Better to dress up than down. Do your research on the job that you're applying for. Okay. If somebody shows up and they don't know shit about your company or what you're hiring for and vice versa, they're not worth your time and energy. Okay. If they haven't put in the time, or if you haven't put in the time, you don't deserve the job. You should know what you're going there for. You should know about the company. You should know about the key players, and you should know what their challenges are if you've really done your research. Okay. Have questions prepared. If anybody's worth their salt as an interviewer, they're going to say, hey, do you have any questions for me? And you know what? The reality is you might even know the answer to the question you asked because you've done your research, as I just suggested, but it's okay to ask something you already know. Maybe they'll give you a different answer than what you thought. At least you're participating in the conversation. You appear to be prepared for the interview, right? And you're ready to go. So have questions, be prepared. Next, be confident. Go in there, know that you're bringing value to the company, know that they're looking for somebody, otherwise they wouldn't be interviewing you. So be confident when you walk through the door. Also, I want to also quantify this. This isn't just about interviewing for a job. Maybe you're interviewing a partner, potential partner in your business relationship, right? Maybe you're looking at starting something with somebody. So maybe there's a somewhat of an interview process there. You're getting to know somebody. Okay. These things apply for that as well. Or maybe you're pitching your business and you want to raise money. So you're going in, maybe it's a venture capitalist, maybe it's an aunt, it's uncle, grandfather, whoever, brother, sister. All these things apply for that. If you're asking somebody for money, dress the part, do your research, be confident, be prepared. All those same things apply if you're looking for money too. So these are just tactics only if you're interviewing or being interviewed. They apply in other areas too, and you should be thinking about that as well. Know why you want the job. Know why you want the job. If you're going in, know why you want the job. And I don't care if it's as simple as I'm trying to make ends meet. You know, there's a recession out there. It's kicking my ass. I need this job. You know, I need to work X amount of hours so I can bring home, you know, what I need for my family. Even if it's as simple as that, but know why you want the job. Employers will respect that and vice versa. Know why you want the job. Know your worth. And this is a huge one right now, okay? And this also applies for entrepreneurs, raising capital, partnerships especially, as well as wanting to work for somebody. Know your worth. And what I mean by that, we had somebody in this group that's no longer in the group, was consulting with them, and they had a monthly rate that they charged for their services, which was $2,500 a month. And they took on a really big client, A-list celebrity that brought a lot of recognition to their business. And when I looked at what they were charging and what their goals were and where they were trying to, you know, bring their business to, what they wanted to achieve, there was a huge disconnect in them knowing what their worth was. And I said, hey, why don't you look at charging between $7,500 and 10 grand a month instead of $2,500? Like, oh my gosh, that seems like a lot of money. I said, yeah, but if you look at your portfolio and what you've done, you're really worth that instead of the $2,500. And guess what? This person went to the next client, threw out there the number of $8,000 a month, and they got the job on the spot. On the spot. Because they knew their worth after we talked about it. They knew they had the past clients to back it up. They just didn't have the confidence to put that worth out there, right? So what I'm saying is know your worth, because you're probably shortchanging yourself Be confident in what you're bringing to the table, okay? And ask for the dollar amount that's going to make it, get done for you. Okay, don't sell yourself short. This is a buyer's market right now, man. If you need a job, you can dictate the terms. You can tell them the hours that you want to work. The day. Hey, I want to work 5 to 9 every day, right, Rod? I want benefits, and I want to be able to go see all my kids' games after, whatever. This is a buyer's market right now, so please know your worth. Along that, though, don't be arrogant about it. You're not God's gift to the world. Go in there, know your worth. Don't be arrogant about it. Tell them that you will prove through your actions and your work that you're worth that. Just don't be arrogant about it. Nobody wants to hire somebody that's arrogant or thinks that they're God's gift to the company, right? By the way, don't hire somebody like that either. Be your worst headache. All right. Be upbeat and be excited for the opportunity. This goes for the interview, but also if you're raising capital or if you're trying to find a partnership, being upbeat and excited about the opportunity to work with somebody, whether that's just getting their financial support, these are big things. Nobody wants to put money into somebody's company that they're not upbeat and excited about. But you would be amazed at how many people I've had pitch me on what they're doing, and they just were ho-hum about it. It's like, why would I put a single dollar into your business if that's how you treat, this request, right? So always, check yourself, be upbeat, be excited for the opportunity. Realize that you're probably grinding away and maybe your head is in a different space. You've got to shift a gear when you're in front of other people, whether that's for the interview, raising money, finding partnerships, okay? Put on that hat for the reason why you started doing what you're doing. Put on that hat and show up to the meeting like that, regardless of what it is. Be willing and available. Be willing and available. It's funny. I have this podcast, and I'll call it successful now because I probably get 12 to 20 requests a week to be on my podcast. Now, I have a slot of time every Monday that people can fill in my calendar and be a guest on my show if they're a fit. By the way, most people are fit for my show, so it's not like this huge vetting process. But it amazes me how many people are unwilling and unavailable to make their schedule fit mine when they're asking me to be on my show, right? And they'll just throw the questions out there like, well, how about, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m.? It's like, no, it's Mondays between, as early as you want and 1 p.m. Montana time. Take your pick, and you got the whole next 24 months to do that, right? People are unwilling and unavailable. So you should be willing and available to tailor your schedule to do what it is that you're after doing. And again, that goes for raising capital or finding a partnership. If you're excited, motivated for the opportunity, you will make yourself available, right? I just told somebody just now they want to start a whiskey company and they're an 8-hour drive away. I said, look, if you're serious, I'll drive down to you, right? I'll make myself available to come down to you to make it happen, right? Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but I want to do the project with this person, and I'm showing him I'm willing to do that by my actions, being willing and be available. All right. Last one in this subcategory, prepare to do your best. In my mind, this goes with everything too, by the way. Prepare to do your best, do your homework, be ready for the interview, be ready to be the interviewee, interviewer. Do your best, always do your best, put your best foot forward. Again, this is another one of those things that doesn't feel like it needs to be said, but man, we can sure check ourselves sometimes. I've showed up at events or activities, interviews, and I just took a double take like, wow, I'm not really at my best right now. I better shift a gear and get in that zone. Because if you don't, you're not going to get the job, you're not going to get the partnership, and you're not going to get the money, right? And I'll just touch on raising capital real quick. As a reminder, with my tequila company, over the 10 years, we raised $12 million in capital. That didn't come from numbers. Our financial performance did not raise that money. What raised that money was me and my team and our willingness to show up to the job every day with excitement, filled with opportunity, and our personalities and what we brought to the table as individuals. Okay, so all these things apply to you if you're raising capital or looking for partnerships, not just an interview situation. All right, when you're in these situations, and oftentimes you'll see or hear Rod and I talk about, telling stories about ourselves and, or stories that actually have to do with the discussion, because people like stories. They like to hear them. My quick interview story when I landed the job with Kettle One Vodka, if you haven't heard it, I think it's in my book. I was at a fundraiser at the Pacific Symphony Opera. Had zero business being there, but I was invited last minute. I was actually, earlier that day, I was surfing because this is when I lived at the beach. I'm in my wetsuit, dripping wet, just got to my car, saw the phone had rang, called the person back. They're like, hey, can you come to this fundraiser tonight? And by the way, you need a tux. I'm looking down at myself going, what? I'm at the beach, right? I said, okay, I'll be there. I go rent a tux. Okay, go back home, get cleaned up. I show up at the event and I find myself at the vendor's table. Okay. By the way, this is one of those events when you walk in, the gift bag is a Baccarat vase, which is worth like $400, like, thanks for showing up. Here's your $400 vase. Anyways, I'm sitting at the vendor's table. I'm sitting with the owner of Kettle One Vodka, and he's got the president of Kettle One Vodka there. We're all in tuxedos. We're all drinking Kettle One apple martinis, telling stories, getting to know each other. And the president says, Jim, I really like your style. Maybe you want to come work for us. I look at him, I said, Bill, we're all in the same outfit, black tuxedos, drinking your drink, apple martinis. Of course you like my style. We got something in common tonight, I said yes to the interview over the weekend because he said, look, we want to ramp up our marketing efforts. We don't have a marketing team, which I thought was crazy because they were already a big company. Over the weekend, I pulled together not only my resume, a cover letter, some references, filled out their app online, but I also put together a 4-page marketing plan for their brand, not knowing what they wanted to do. I showed up to the interview on Monday and I said, look, you talked about marketing, ramping up efforts. Here's all my information, but here's kind of a marketing idea that I thought you might like to see what I would do as a marketing person, right? And he looked at it and said, hey, that's a good idea. I promise you, he never looked at that again, right? We didn't do it. But what it did show is that I was prepared to talk about marketing. I went the extra mile by preparing a marketing plan to say, hey, I'm willing to do the work, whether I got the job or not. Here's something I produced over the weekend, right? Now, to take that a little bit further on how your personality and your preparedness can win you the job, towards the tail end of the interview, he says, hey, Jim, I don't see what college you went to on here. What college did you attend? Where'd you graduate from? I said, Bill, why does it matter if I went to college or not? He says, well, it shows your dedication to something, like you put the time in to a 4-year degree. I said, well, I came off a job not too long ago working for In-N-Out Burger for 12 years. I was the most successful manager in company history. I broke all their sales records. Does that not count for something? He goes, no, you're right. I said, well, I didn't go to college. I took a couple of years of hospitality management at Cal Poly. I said, so I don't have that degree, but I'm happy to do the job for you. He said, you know what? It'll be our little secret because everybody here has to have a degree. It'll be our little secret. We're going to bring you on board. Instantly, I got the job, right? The reason why is because I did all those things I just talked about doing in the last segment here. All those things about being prepared for the job, for the interview. And that was a big job, by the way. That was a 6-figure salary. It wasn't a light, hey, we want to bring on at minimum wage. That was a big job. And I eventually became the vice president of that company. So anything's possible, but utilizing those tools that I gave you will allow you to land the deal, whatever that deal looks like, right? So going back to sharing stories, I just shared a story about myself that's kind of compelling. Think about that when you're in the interview or when you're in the process of doing deals with people, all right? By the way, if you are doing an interview, people, again, if they're worth their salt, they're going to ask you about challenges that you might have overcame in your career. These are great ways for them to get to know if you have the capability of overcoming challenges in this potential job or in a potential step up within your job. And it's a great time for you to think about what challenges those might be, whether that's even a simple challenge at home. If you can articulate, this was a challenge, this is how I overcame it, and this is what the results are, it's going to prove to them that you have the capability to overcome challenges, right? Same goes for if you're in the capital raise process, excuse me, they might say, well, we're investing all this money. What happens if this happens, right? You'll be able to articulate how you can overcome challenges, right? And be ready for that. How you are committed to the project are the outcome. Go back to my story with In-N-Out, right? When I was with Bill there, he's like, oh, did you go to college because it shows your worth? No, but I worked for In-N-Out Burger for 12 years. I was dedicated, right? Be able to convey to this person or to your potential partner or investor your ability to be committed to something. Proof is in the bag, right? I know we've got some ex-vets on here, some men in blue. That shows commitment to doing something, right? Have a story to articulate your ability to commit to something. Also, have some stories about some wins, areas that you were successful in that shows a win. This especially goes for the case if you're raising capital. People want to know they're investing in a winner and your ability to come out on top. So have some good win stories. By the way, don't just have one, have a couple. They might be, maybe this turns into a long lunch where they're excited about you and they like you telling the stories of things that you've won. Maybe it turns into a long interview. So don't just have one win, have a couple, all right? Also, how you've made a difference in your company, right? In the past, if you're interviewing, how you've made a difference in the companies you worked for. This is a good one that applies for partnerships. If you're interviewing somebody for a partnership, you want to know what they've done to make a difference where they've worked at in their careers, because you're going to want somebody to help make the same differences in your partnership and where you're going with your business. How others feel about you are an accolade for doing a good job. Accolades, they're okay to have, but you're only going to bring the good stuff, right? So accolades are fine. If you've won some awards, that's always good to have. Bring some awards or mention some awards, because that often comes with the criteria that you've met to receive that accolade. And then finally, some real examples of your work, regardless of what it is, it all applies. And I think this is an important thing to bring up, because we don't oftentimes give ourselves credit for what we've done. And that's credit in general. It's not just credit in the job, but maybe you've done something significant. Maybe it's just in your yard. Maybe you've created this bitchin' garden and with extravagant water source and all these different things, or ways to keep the critters out. Whatever it is, if you can articulate ways that you've won or done something significant that shows that you can bring something to the table, those all work. So don't be afraid to bring things to the table that you've done, regardless of what it is. It all applies. If nothing else, it makes for an interesting conversation, right? I built my first fence line in my pasture last year. A little bit crooked, but I'm proud of it. Fence is solid. It's still standing. Got a gate on there and everything. I mean, it seems silly, but it was a lot of work. It's something that I overcame. I didn't think I could do it. I was going to hire somebody out to do it for a couple $1,000s, So now I've got pride of ownership and a job well done. It all applies. And by the way, I could turn that into a 10-minute story about digging big rocks out and all that other crap. So anything applies. All right. Last topic on interviews and all the above, where this applies, is stand out, not only on paper, but in person. Okay. Look for ways to stand out. This gets you out of the clutter, right? If that means, and I'll use some simple examples, right? If that means filling out an application online versus typed, that's a big way to stand out. If you got to handwrite it, use perfect handwriting. That's pretty black and white. But let's say you're raising capital. Let's say you're looking for a partner in your business. Stand out in your communication with that person, right? Be articulate, be thorough in your emails, be professional, be concise, be on time. Stand out in the arena that you're playing in. Interviewing or being interviewed, or raising money or finding a partner. Find ways that you can stand out. You want to win the ties every time. Give them a reason to pick you over somebody else. If you're raising money and you're in front of venture capitalists, they're looking at several deals a day, right? When it gets to be Friday and they're going to start writing checks, you want them to think about you, the person that stood out for whatever that is. I don't care if it's even, sending a different color of paper to them to stand out amongst the clutter of white paper, right? Back in the day, we used to always find the heavy grade paper, the 10 point, so it was thick and it looked like it was naturally pressed. If we're going to send a resume, like I'm going to buy the good paper and the good envelope, right? Those things work. They still work. Okay. Find ways to stand out, especially in a digital society. Actually, comes to mind, going back to my podcast, like I said, I get a couple dozen requests a week. And I remember it was probably a year and a half ago. I got an email from a guy. He said, Jim, I'd really like to be on your podcast. I've listened to these episodes. He listed them. I love, the subject matter. This is a little bit about me. And by the way, check the attached video that I recorded to you as to why I think I'd be a good guest. I'm like, video, huh? He created a YouTube video of himself telling me why he'd be a good guest with his story. And it was only a minute long, right? But I instantly wrote him back, said, yes, I want you on my show. And he was every bit of that same person on the video as he was in the interview show. But he stood out amongst all the clutter at the time. He found a way to get to me other than just a written email like everybody else. So find a way to stand out. This applies to an application, but I said, don't leave anything blank. Don't leave anything blank. I think that applies to all these topics in all arenas. In other words, if you show up to a capital raise appointment or a partnership appointment, don't have any blanks. Have the answers. Be prepared. Be willing to discuss all those topics that might be overlooked, right? Don't have any blank areas in your presentation. So it goes well beyond just filling out an application, leaving something blank. Everything has an answer, whether it's no answer, right? At least that's something. At least you can say, hey, I haven't addressed that problem yet, but it's on my radar. Thank you for bringing it up. Hey, this is a 2D determined box, but we will figure it out, right? Don't ever leave anything blank, because when you do, the person will question, did he not think about this? Did they not see that big box right there? Did they not think it was important to discuss financials in our meeting? Did they not think to ask for the money at the end of the meeting? Don't leave anything blank. Be ready to offer references or referrals. Now, I'm going to give you two examples in this as it relates to interviews and being or interviewing somebody. References and referrals, they're kind of bullshit, right? Nobody's going to give you a shitty reference, and you're not going to give somebody else a shitty reference, right? But it's still common for people to ask for them. So if you show up to an interview, bring some referrals, put them in your business binder when you show up. Don't pull them out, because it's almost like, oh, here's my references. And they're going to go, well, I know these are probably, friends that are going to say nice things about them. But have them in your binder. If they say, do you have any references? Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. And then you can pull them out. It shows that you're prepared. If you ask somebody for their references, know that you're going to get the cream of the crop. People are going to say nice things about them. However, when it relates to partnerships and raising capital, references are good to bring into the discussion early, because then they can check, like, hey, this person wants to be a business partner. What do you think? What were your challenges, right? The rules of engagement are a little bit different, because you're not interviewing somebody for an employee now, where there's some laws around that. You're actually interviewing for a personality fit, right? So the rules of engagement are a little bit different. Not to mention, you can see the caliber of people that they spend time with, if that's somebody that you want to be a partner with. If you're raising capital, you might want to bring some references to the table that showcase the caliber of people that you've worked with, right? If I'm raising capital, I'm going to bring all the big dog references. I'm going to say, I've worked with this person, this person, this person. We've raised $12 million here. We've done this over here. And I'm going to impress the shit out of them on paper, right? And they can check all that, because those are real things. So in that case, I'm really going to bring in the references. I'm going to do a lot of homework on that. And by the way, I'm going to call those references and say, hey, I've listed you, and this is the meeting I'm taking next Thursday. And then that morning, I'm going to text them and say, by the way, don't forget, I'm talking to these people today. They may call you, right? So I go above and beyond when it's outside of the scope of interviewing or being interviewed on the references and referrals. It's an opportunity for you. Okay, and I'm going to wrap up this discussion on interview skills, questions, and things like that with, don't be afraid to ask, whether that's ask for the job, ask for the partnership, or ask for the money. Okay. Right now, I'm working with candidates on our 1776 syndicate, working with candidates to get elected, right? Number one mistake they all make. This is national survey. Number one mistake they make on their websites, they forget to ask for the vote. It's like 85% of candidates don't ask for the vote on their website, right? Same thing goes in everything else in life. Don't be afraid to ask. You're there for a reason. They know you're there for a reason. Show them that you're willing to ask for the job. You're willing to ask for the money. You're willing to ask for the partnership. And if you're not sure at the time, then maybe you shouldn't have been in the meeting in the first place. Be certain of why you're there, make good use of the time, and don't be afraid to ask, okay? Be the solution in all these scenarios. If you're being interviewed for a job, a move up in the company, whatever that might look like, be their solution. And I would come to that meeting prepared with maybe a couple challenges you've seen. Maybe they're even small things, but be their solution, right? I'll give you a Kettle One example. The building that we worked in, it was like being at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. If you've ever been to a Ritz-Carlton, the reason why I use that as an example, because they use a lot of gold leaf on their decor, thick white paint, beautiful thick carpet. That's what my office looked like. All antique European furniture, like one chair is 10 grand type thing. That's what Kettle One looked like, right? Now, this is a really, really small solution, but you get the point. When guests arrived in this beautiful office, they came up a glass elevator, the secretary let them in. The carpet is squishy, cozy, nice music play. I mean, it's extravagant. The admin assistant greets them. Hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? Sure, that would be nice. Goes to the coffee area and brings back a styrofoam cup of coffee. Here you go, cream and sugar. I'm going, guys, you spent $13 million on this building, and your first impression after they see this beautiful building is to hand them a styrofoam cup of coffee? Let's get some china here, right? It's a simple thing, but you get the idea. People easily overlook the simplest of solutions are the final piece to the puzzle. We wound up getting china for the office, right? Made all the difference in the world. Nothing like getting a nice piece of china on a saucer with a nice silver spoon instead of a styrofoam cup, right? Be the solution to other people's problems. Know that you're coming from the outside in and allow them to let you fix their problem, right? That goes for the job you're looking for. That goes for a partnership. People are usually looking for a partnership for a reason. Why do they want to get in business with you, right? Be their solution. You want to raise capital? Be their solution. Find out what number they need to make that year. What are they trying to hit, right? They're trying to make a 8% return on their money. Well, be a solution to a percentage of that. I'm not saying you got to hit 8, right? You say, look, I can't give you 8, but I'll guarantee you 2 all day long, no matter what. You go find the other 6, but for this money, I'm going to guarantee you 2, right? You're becoming a solution for them. Because by the way, if I knew somebody covered a 2% return for me all day, every day with confidence, that's a good bet for me, because then all I got to do is go find 6 somewhere else, right? So be people's solution, all right? Be timely, follow up in the same manner. Always follow up. My wife just got a card from the Trump, Lincoln, Reagan dinner. It asked her to volunteer for one thing, and she wound up doing 20 other things. And 2 different people that she interacted with sent her very nice thank you cards. Unexpected, didn't need them, right? But they both sent their own handwritten thank you cards for the involvement that she had within their individual tasks within the night, right? To me, that goes a long ways. It was surprising to get those cards. And by the way, it was timely. This just happened less than a week ago, right? So be timely, follow up in the same manner. 2 more things. We'll wrap that part up. Have your questions ready. Talk about anything. Visualize yourself in this position. Okay, we've talked about visualizing things that you're grateful for, visualizing what you want to be. Visualize yourself in this position. All right. I'm going to throw one at Bruce because I'm looking at his face here. He's taking good notes. Bruce has started a podcast. Okay. By the way, if you haven't heard his podcast, it's great. If you're into guns, great podcast. I promise you, you will learn something. By the way, Bruce, I'm going to buy my 22 LR handgun platform just so I can burn off a whole bunch of rounds per your podcast suggestion, right? Visualize yourself, and again, using Bruce as an example, visualize yourself recording that podcast with an audience of 1 million people. You're the Joe Rogan of gun, education, right? When you're sitting there recording, when you sit down to record that show with Will, hey, we are the Joe Rogan of the podcast world in our section here. we're going to be the best. We're going to, do the work, put out great content, and people are going to see us as that, right? Don't half-ass it. Don't not give it 100% when you show up to the job. That's what's going to make the difference for you. People don't visualize that. They don't see themselves as that. And the reason why I picked on Bruce on this one is because sometimes we get a little bit of an imposter syndrome in these scenarios. We feel like, why do people care that I'm the guy talking? I'm the talking head on the podcast. Like, what do I have to offer? Why would they listen to me talk for an hour? Well, guess what? You're bringing value. What you're saying is important. What you're saying matters. Show up that way in your own head, and that's going to come across through the radio waves. People are going to go, man, these guys know their shit. I got to listen to their next show. Matter of fact, I'm going to binge watch or listen to all their shows, right? So put yourself in that position, visualize yourself doing that you aspire to do. And I know we've talked about it before, but we can't emphasize that enough. Visualization works. If nothing else, it gets you in the right headspace to do what you're doing and be successful at it, right? Last thing, don't give up and be willing to do it for free if you have to. If you really want to do that which you're aspiring for, whether that's in the interview or the partnership or the capital raise, don't give up. All right. Maybe one no is a yes somewhere else. Maybe it's a no now and it's a yes later. But if you're passionate about it, why would you give up? Why wouldn't you continue to pursue it? It baffles me. In our other group, the 1776 Syndicate, we had 41 people run for school board last year. A third of those people got elected. The 2/3 that didn't have disappeared into thin air. I can't even get them on the phone. Like, what happened to your passion for your kids, for your community, for wanting to be involved, for the time and effort you put towards that? If you really cared about it, why would you give up? Why would you throw in the towel? Same thing goes for getting a job or starting a business or raising the money. It really is a numbers game. The more you ask, the more you'll get to that, the closer you get to that yes or that success, right? Anybody, and I don't know the exact details of the story, but it's an old story, and it's not even a Y.E.S tale, where the guy digging for gold stopped 2 feet short of the gold, and it turned out it was like the largest gold ore in the world. If he would have just dug 2 more feet, he would have found that gold that he dug for like 20 years. People give up right at the cusp of their success or getting the job or raising the money or finding the perfect partner. So don't give up. And what I'm going to say about that is that's what this group is for on Mondays, that you can show up and get some reinforcement. So when you go back on Tuesday or the rest of tonight, that you have the strength not to give up on what it is you're aspiring to do, right? We're here for you for that. So questions? Oh, by the way, one more thing. Brendan is on the line. He's listening. He's not going to tune in. He is launching a new group, and I'm so proud of him for it because it is exactly aligned with who he is, what he stands for, and where he wants to go. And he's going to wrap some things up on that over the weekend. I think he suggested to me it was like Saturday, and we're going to promote it on our next newsletter because I'm so excited about what he's doing. He's hitting this thing on all cylinders. It's a culmination, I believe, of all the things that he's been involved with from this group to some of the others in his own life, that he's bringing it all together, right? And if he doesn't give up on it, I know that he's going to succeed. So really proud of him for what he's doing because he exemplifies what we've been talking about tonight. So, all right, questions, and I'm going to let Rod weigh in. You're up, Rod.
All right. I don't see any questions out there. Well, I'll tell you, Jim, I appreciate everything you said tonight. And to me, being an entrepreneur, it's very important too to understand that as your business grows, you're going to eventually end up hiring people or partnering with new people or branching out. And the interview process is so important because you never stop interviewing people. You may be interviewing potential customers. You may be interviewing potential affiliate sales reps or whatever. The interviewing doesn't stop. And so just being reminded of all those different things matters in everything that we do. And it's kind of interesting. I always like I have a list of the questions you can't ask in an interview, right? That's probably more important than what you can ask. what you can't ask, because you can think maybe you ask one simple question and it can open you up for a lawsuit. And the average lawsuit for employment hiring discrimination, it costs you about 100 grand today. So, if you are in that position, make sure that when you are hiring, you have an HR manual, that you know what you can and cannot ask, and be familiar with that. And it can be as much as one word. What relative should we contact in case of emergency? You can't say that. You can say, who should we contact in case of emergency? But you can't say relative, because it puts some people at, well, I don't have a family, so it's crazy. But you have to be so careful, and details matter. And that's what, with the stories you told, even with Kettle One, it's those details, those small details that matter and take us to the next level. The other thing is, I think everybody on here has had more than one job in their career. We've got different experiences. And even if it's with the same company, but you've leveled up or whatever, I like to look back at my career and say, what is it I learned from being a paper boy to working on ranches, cleaning out stalls, whatever it was? What was the one takeaway? What was the one thing I learned from each of those jobs? And that becomes a part of who you are. Those are character building things. And that's always a safe question to ask people. What was the one thing you learned from the last job you had? Some of you may be interviewing college graduates that have never had a job, or high school kids that have never had a real job. This might be their first interview. And you can turn that around and say, well, what was the best class you ever had in high school? And how did the instructor help you get the most out of that class? How did your supervisor at your last job help get the most out of your project? You can tailor any of these interview things to any situation, and being able to duck and dodge and move and float back and forth is like a dance. It's the business dance, right? Talking about entrepreneurship, business is an art form. And if more people looked at it as an art form, I think there'd be more appreciation for it, because it's all those subtleties, the layers and the fine hues, and being able to work with a wide range of different personalities and people types. Those are all skills that we learn, and those are skills we're looking to develop in other people, and they're skills we're looking for partners to have. And so that's just kind of my recap of what you said. I could teach a whole class on this from my vantage point as well, and maybe we will down the road. But I will say, I think that this is the middle of October, and I think it was the end of September a year ago that Jim actually met for coffee for the first time. And so I think we had our first conversation about what our values were and how we could leverage that into a business about 1 year ago. And Jim and I are now business partners in two different ventures, and we draft off of one another. We're two different people, two totally different backgrounds, but what we bring to the table collectively and corporately magnifies each of our traits, and it magnifies what we do together. So finding those partners, finding those people that you align with and can work with, what can you learn from that person? What can they learn from you? That symbiotic relationship is so important. And if you're in a corporate environment, how can you develop that, in that corporate environment, with the people below you? How can you build other people up, and how can you strengthen your alliances and relationships with people that you're answering to? And that all happens in interviews, right? Maybe not a job interview, but it happens when you're talking to those people. It might be over the lunch cooler, over a cup of coffee, on the golf course. I don't care. Interviews happen everywhere. And we should constantly be looking for those character traits, those things that are important, and finding things that might be a void in our own lives or in our businesses, and how can they match up. Those alignments are out there waiting to happen every day, and you just have to be open to them. So that's part of that mindset. What can I learn today? Who can I learn it from? Who can I help? We've talked about that before, and this is that interview thing. So that's kind of my quick rant on that. But again, Jim, I appreciate you. I appreciate our partnership. I appreciate all of you for showing up on these calls. And those of you who have spoken up and added value and contacted us outside of, our Zoom calls. I learned something from each and every one of you. You continue to challenge me, and I don't take that for granted. I appreciate you, seriously, all of you. So that's it. Jim, back to you.
Thanks, Rod. Let me say something real quick and throw this at Bruce. I don't know if you have a question, but thank you for the comment. He did say gentle pressure applied relentlessly, right? That works. That works. It goes back to when I've said, if you're going to start something, 5 minutes a day will get you there. Instead of not doing something, 5 minutes a day will get you. That's my version of gentle pressure, right? If you got a full-time job, you got kids, you got household things to do, and you've got 5 extra minutes before you go to bed or you change gears, go sit at your desk and spend 5 minutes on that business plan or 5 minutes on that pitch or writing that book or whatever that looks like. 5 minutes a day will get you there. By the end of the year, you'll have a massive body of work if that's as fast as you can go. And that goes back to what I originally said when I started this discussion. What are you looking at in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? How long are you willing to apply that pressure to achieve your goals? Because you get there faster than you think. I'm in my 50s now. I never thought I was going to get here as fast as I did, but I'm glad I started when I did on so many things. Rod made me think about another scenario on why these interview tactics are important, right? What I don't want you to do is get off the call and somebody says, "Oh, how was your call?" "Oh, we learned about interviewing tonight. I'm not even going to have any employees." If that's your answer to somebody, you've missed the whole message. And I don't think anybody's going to do that. What these are reminders of life skills that at this point, I'll presume everybody on this call already has, but needs to be reminded of how important these skills are, how to apply them, right? And what you will receive once you apply them. And by the way, to Rod's point, you can apply these anywhere. If you're in line at Chick-fil-A and there's a long line and you're going to spend 5 minutes next to the person in front of you or behind you, "Hey, how's your day? Good? Oh, where do you live? What do you do?" Start applying some of these interview skills, because you don't know. They might be your next partner. They might be your next customer. They might be your next podcast listener, right? "Oh, how funny. We got this in common. Look, I'm going to order it. Here's my business card. You got to check out my podcast." Or, "Hey, this is in common. Why don't you, here's my card. Give me a hit. Call me sometime." Or, "My Instagram's on here. You can follow along my quotes. They're always positive." Or they're, faith-based because you're at Chick-fil-A. Whatever it is, you're opening up a small door to who knows what that could be down the road. Just because you're applying some of these, easy interview skills or tactics. "Man, I met this guy in line today at Chick-fil-A. He was so upbeat. He was motivated. I guess he's doing this new podcast about guns. And I was telling him I was thinking about buying a gun. I got to check out his show." All of a sudden you created a moment for somebody else to talk about you because you're showing up to that interview every day, wherever you're at. Last story I'm going to tell. I remember when I was working for Kettle One, the standard was we had to wear a suit and tie to work every day. And we got to the office and take that coat off. You couldn't even put it on the back of your chair. You had to hang it on the hook behind your door so it didn't look sloppy. Like literally there was a hook on that door for your jacket. You don't miss it, right? But what I very quickly learned is that I was representing a company that had standards. And if those standards weren't met, you fell short of that. And oftentimes when you fall short, you feel it yourself, not necessarily the company, but I felt it myself. So when I would fly, because I did a lot of flying at the time from California to New York, I dressed the part because I realized I'm going to engage with the person sitting next to me. I'm not going to show up in my hip hop shirt and, hat, flat bill or something and tennis shoes, because what if they say, "What do you do for a living?" "Oh, I'm the vice president of Kettle One." "Really? You don't look like it." Right? So, we wear these things on our sleeves, and it's good to remember that. If you're in business for yourself or you're working for a company, remember how you present yourself to others is going to be reflective of what you do. So, Bruce, did you have a question? I see your mic's off.
I was just going to mention something. I did an awful lot of interviewing and interrogations in my career. And the one thing that I would tell you is the hardest thing to do is to ask for money. It's one of the most difficult things in the world. And you really need to practice that. When I was recruiting confidential human sources, what I was doing was asking someone to betray a confidence to provide information to law enforcement. That's a very difficult thing to do. And so you had to practice that stuff. But at some point, you need to be able to say, Jim, I need you to assist the U.S. government and provide information about this particular person. Will you help me? And then stop.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with money. You want money, then you got to be able to talk about it. And I see people constantly have trouble with little of this and wishy-washy. Don't be wishy-washy. If you're worth something, you're worth it. You want $1,000 a day or whatever it is, then this is what I'm worth. If it works for you and you want to pay it, great. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul, move on. You may be my next customer a year from that type thing.
Yep.
So just food for thought. That, and then the handwritten thank yous is a big deal. I've got a stationer locally that provides company logo. And every time I do a class or somebody does something for me, there's a handwritten note that goes out that says, hey, thanks for doing this. So food for thought. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate your input. I don't think I'd want to be on the other end of one of your FBI interviews, by the way. Thank God I wasn't. Look, thank you for everybody being on the call. We're here for you if you need us. We're going to continue to add more resources on the Entrepreneur's website. So check in there. We just added a whole bunch of books, or we're in the process of adding some more books that we felt were good resources for people. But don't miss the message tonight, okay? If you're passionate about what you want to do, what are you willing to give to get it? And how long are you willing to give that, right? I know for me, my passion is my faith and my family. I'm going to give everything for that. And I do that every single day, right? So I hope that you find what your passion is and what you're willing to give to get what you want. So keep after it. Thank you, everybody. Next week, Rod's got the call, and look forward to that too, Rod. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.